Okay, here.
Can we send an
Yeah,
officer
no,
to the
here.
court? Yeah, go get her.
Is the guy with that property on 3100?
You've been sequestered to the basement. That's right.
No, that one guy on 3100 where we parks and stuff, he's talking to.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, are we live streaming or just recording?
Now we're live. Live stream and then. Yep. It's a twofer. You get a twofer that way. Mhm. Wilson, you can be
You
here
can
too.
go ahead.
You
I
ready?
have to
Okay.
get it to share my screen.
I want to welcome everybody out to the Roy City Council Special Work Session. The date is August 15th, 2023. According to my watch, we are sitting at 7:35. I want to recognize that we do have with us Councilmember Scadden, Councilmember Sophie Paul, Councilmember Jackson, Councilmember Joe Paul. I didn't see Diane come yet, so we'll excuse her at the moment. Council, this is particular work session is going to focus specifically on the Roy City 5-year strategic plan. This is the third session we've had on this. Our intent would be is to kind of pull this information together. With that, I'm going to ask Brittany if she would bring up the charts. What we'd like to do is walk through the charts with you, get your comments, and hopefully be able to work through these proposed adjustments to the 5-year strategic plan with the anticipation then to take what you provide to us today, assemble us in our final document, and then formally present that to you either next month or as soon as we can within a city council meeting to be approved during that meeting. So this is work session. Our intent is to simply work through the information that's been provided. You okay with all that? In absence of comments, I assume that's the case. What we'd like to do is we'd like to, and I'm going to stand up here if you don't mind. What I'd like to do is we're going to break this into 3 sections again, like we've done in the past. We'll ask Matt and Brody and myself to kind of walk through our segment with you. And then we'll capture the information that comes out of the conversation. Just to kind of give you a precursor, what you are going to see is the input that was provided to the draft plan. So all the stuff where we did not receive any input will not be presented here. We make the assumption that it was okay as it's written and that we'll go ahead and move forward that. So what you're going to see then is you're just going to basically see those recommendations, those comments that were presented to Matt or myself or Brody, and we assembled them. Chart? This will be a little bit of the agenda. Okay, we're just going to go through briefly the timelines of major categories, just to remind you about the pillars, how it works. We're going to try to finalize the plan. At the end of this conversation, we have 2 very important things we need to discuss and finalize. It's the implementation date. We'll give you some options to consider. And then we want to basically ask the question, how often do you want to review this plan to make updates? Feedback in terms of where we are, but equally important to make sure you understand when we've completed and what's been reviewed and where we are in that process. Chart. So with that, just a timeline again. We've gone through the first work session. We did all the prep work. We've gone through the second work session. We've done all the prep work. We're now in the third session to kind of pull this whole information piece together. Chart. Last piece of this, before we jump into it, I want to remind you of the pillars. There are 6 pillars to this. These 6 pillars then support Roy City's mission, the purposeness of the 5-year strategic strategy plan. Community image and pride, you can read through those. You've seen them many times. We're still holding to the 6 principal pillars that we started with. Chart. Now, these are the proposed.
I think that diagram is very nice and that you probably ought to put it at the beginning of your final document.
Put it up forward.
is the pillar thing. I think that it draws the conclusion of the 6 pillars so well that it might be nice to have that as one of the pictures in your actual document.
Okay. Okay, we just make a note of that, Matt, Brody. Okay, that's a good request, Diane. Thank you. Okay, chart. Again, these are the proposed recommendations to strategic plan. The work session will only focus on the recommendations that were offered. Okay. Next chart, we're going to jump right in. We're going to jump right into this page, which is the executive summary page, page 3. What was everything that's done here is the same in the original draft. What was being offered is to add now the business depot Ogden. Just more clarification in terms of what happened when it went from Defense Supply Depot to now it's called the Business Depot Ogden. Okay, any problems with that chart? This change looks at page 3, Roy's strategic strategy plan. It's the central purpose of this undertaking. Rather than use the word was, put the word is. You okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, everybody okay? Chart?
And to provide city after Roy too. That was on there too. You didn't read that part.
Yeah, everything will basically go in, excuse me, and then we add the Roy City.
Yeah.
Yeah, just for clarification. Okay, yeah, thank you. Chart? Okay, it was recommended, a question was brought up that simply says, why was the transportation plan then inserted as part of this conversation, particularly to this illustration? Here's a brief understanding of it. Let me just read that to you. The transportation plan includes information on traffic congestion projections out to 2040 and potential mitigation requirements for the city to consider. If you read through the transportation plan, it kind of gives you a pretty good ballpark of a lot of different things. They include roundabouts. If the city council and the city recommends, then the city council approves. They give you some recommendation to put where to put roundabouts, assuming we spell them right. That's the conversation we'll have here in a few minutes. Traffic signals and adjustments to the posted speed limits. All of that is embedded in the traffic or the transportation plan. There's information on traffic calming devices, if needed. And the plan offers active transportation trail options to help provide alternate transportation needs.
I should say if tolerated, not if needed.
Yeah, well, we could use those adjectives. That's a good one. Now, this information is provided to help Roy City leadership in addressing current and future transportation requirements. However, it lacks an implementation strategy. It has these interesting ideas, but there's no mechanism within that that simply says we need to do this and we ought to do that and have this kind of dialogue. By putting it into the 5-year strategic strategy plan, we can take the relevant components outlined in the transportation plan and put them into an activation or an implementation plan to make them happen. Example, if you went in there, you're going to see things like, when are we going to get the roundabout at 3,100 and 6,000? Soon. Transportation plan says put one there. We put an activation plan to make it there. There's a requirement in there that talks about putting the roundabout or a signal at 4,300 west and 6,000. Okay, it's in there. We've already submitted the information to help get that to happen, but we don't know when the timing of that will be. And so we work it. As long as it's in the 5-year strategy plan, we keep it in front of us, and our intent would be as at some point in time in the future, we would like to have that implemented. The timing of when that implementation will take place based on a couple of things. Obviously, funding, that's important. Some of that funding will actually come from outside of Roy City, and your decision as council at the recommendations of staff. So just because it's in the 5-year strategic strategy plan does not necessarily mean it's going to happen this year, next year, in some cases in the next 5 years. You decide. And when you decide, then it puts staff in a motion to be able to go ahead and start making that happen. So at some point in time, when we make the decision for implementation of the elements outlined in the transportation plan, you will decide as city council when that will happen, and the city will make that happen. That's how it works. Now, why is that important? Because I will tell you, in the transportation plan, there are some problems with speed limit. Not problems in terms of they're a problem, but problem in terms of the fact is that if you're looking to get the throughput on the arteries running through the cities, some of those speed limits are understated from what the plan says should be. And so in essence is, if you know that it's out there and it's part of the plan, then it's very possible you may elect, let's take this process and let's check the speed limit at this site or on this road. And then it has an action plan in there to how we're going to do that. Again, city council, you make that decision. City staff, implement your decision. That's the process. You okay with all that? So, general plan has a lot of interesting things. Transportation plan has a lot of interesting things. Economical development plan, strategy plan has a lot of interesting things. Those are focused into a document that's sitting in front of you that we will review based on the determination what's going to happen at the end of this presentation and which ones you want when you want to work on those. And equally important, what else do you want to add? That's the purpose of why it's in there. Any problems with that? Chart? Okay. In the plan, it says in the plans on page 6, it talks about some things, but it talks about this. It says report quarterly or semi-annually in the formal city council meeting, the strategy plan implementation progress and impacts. So the intent of this will then talk to the idea about we're going to meet to discuss them. This comment suggests include in that meeting a discussion on new goals, objectives, and action plans. Because if something comes up, then the idea with this comment would be is it's not just reviewing what we have in there, but maybe there needs to be a conversation about what we need to add to it. And if you think, yeah,
Great idea.
you got an idea, then we add to it. Okay? If you don't have any ideas, since nothing comes from staff or nothing comes from city council, we just move through it. But it gives you a mechanism within that meeting that says, hey, I got an idea. We need to do something with this new idea and adds it to the 5-year strategic strategy plan. You okay with that?
Yep. All the changes.
The strategic strategy plan is a document that, once it completed and approved, can very well be a tool. Now, it's obviously used as a tool. The intent here would be is add the word that. You okay with that?
Yep.
That is fine.
Okay, chart. Now, this one is more than embarrassing. Having read this thing more times than I can count. We had a few misspelled words. So we really appreciate the input to make sure the document reads well. Under the SWOT, okay, which is the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, we need to make sure we spell strengths right. Okay, so this is actually a spell check correction. You okay with that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. If you didn't, I'm not sure we can go on with this meeting. It was suggested we add to the strengths is the community involvement and unity. I think we've seen evidence of that through Roy Days. There was such a real getting together. Are you okay to suggest to any reader of this document that in fact, one of the things that Roy City has as a strength is the fact is we have community involvement and unity. Make sense?
Right.
You okay with that? Great. Okay. Weaknesses. Dilapidated, old, remove the word old downtown area.
Good.
Make sense? Yep. You okay with that? Okay. retail sales that leave the city to, okay, remove the word to and add then the word and leave the city and are captured by Riverdale and Clinton. It's just a clarification of the statement. You okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. I just need three, I'm just looking for three head nods. Once I get three head nods, we'll move on. Opportunities, prepare a business requirement plan. Now that's saying is, what do you mean by that? What does that mean? Okay, Brody, as the Economic Development Director, how would you think we ought to respond to understanding why that comment is under opportunities?
So I'm not really sure who put this in there, but there is an opportunity, and a business requirement plan essentially would be a formal study that's done to look at what type of businesses or entities are lacking in the city and how we promote and recruit those. It's done all the time. I think, you know, we look at certain types of restaurants and certain things that people have plenty of availability here in Roy, but what are the types of businesses that are not here that somebody has to leave Roy for? And then try and see if there's even market and economic viability for those things here, or if it's like, I think the mayor in our discussions brought up Costco. We can all want a Costco. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. That will never happen. Okay, so Costco's out.
Or Trader Joe's, yeah.
There's something
There'll
else.
be a lot of work coming up soon for
So
Trader Joe's.
it's
but
just, it's a plan and a study done by experts who can balance that and say, these are the things where Roy residents leave Roy City for. And then we can focus on trying to create opportunities for those.
Can we spell opportunities right
I
too?
picked that up too.
Yeah, I just said
We
opportunity.
want to make sure that we spell it right. Where's that T? Okay, so we'll correct that.
Well, we are in Utah and we take teas out of mountain and lake, and so opportunities.
So why not?
Opportunities.
Duties.
Are you okay with that definition in terms of why we think prepare a business requirement plan really can be and could be included under opportunities?
Yes.
Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Threats, remove the word other, and then just capitalize the S. Surrounding cities capture our retail opportunities. Certainly, we see that. And then the city council does not want to make changes to ordinances and policies needed for development. And the question that came through would be is, what does that mean? Take a shot at that one, Brody.
So essentially, this comes from not only specific situations to Roy, but in general, if you look at what the state is doing, the state is usurping local control. It's not a secret. But quite frankly, there's cities that are actively campaigning and saying there are certain types of development and housing opportunities that they're not going to allow and they're not going to zone for. This comes as a threat to all cities and local governments. You know, specific to Roy, we might run into situations where, you know, zoning changes are allowable, but then they're not approved because it's a different way of thinking or a different opportunity, or people are upset, and that hinders growth and that hinders development. So.
So is there a better way to, I don't like, it sounds like we're not willing to make changes to
Yeah.
ordinances. I don't like how it reads. Because we want to make changes to ordinances when necessary or when
Sure.
we've seen it happen all the time, when it benefits and when both parties see a need for the changes. That sounds like we're not making changes. Is there a way to
We're very rigid, we're very fixed in
Yeah,
terms of
is
our.
there a way to or am I taking that wrong? How,
Or can we just remove it?
Yeah, can we drop it?
You certainly can.
Because the way that.
What's the purpose of it, really?
Yeah,
Right.
because I read it like, so let's paint a picture, right? We had a developer come in and there were two adjoining pieces of property. One is zoned commercial, one is zoned, I don't know, residential or high density residential. And they wanted to put some type of non-conforming, development there. Would we come in and tell them no? Or If the opportunity was good enough, would we go through and say, maybe we can see a way that we can make the zoning in that area or rezone it to accommodate that type of request?
Because with that, we've closed the door before the conversation has even happened, and I don't know, what do you
Yeah, I
think?
think we should just take it out.
I don't know,
Strike it.
Brody,
Okay.
do that,
What do you think,
what do you
Brody?
think? Yeah,
Well, this is, I mean, this is just the SWOT analysis. So
Right.
to be honest, I didn't even write it. I don't know, really, but
okay.
like,
Well,
these are
you
just
know,
things-
Yeah, then you don't feel bad if you strike
It's
it.
not rude if we say, yeah,
I have very little feelings.
okay.
Yeah. He's an attorney by trade.
Maybe you take it out. I just don't like how it reads.
Yeah. Okay, so strike it.
Are we okay with the remove? Perfect.
Yeah.
Lack of incentives, which means, in this case, like what? What kind
Does
of?
that mean like
lack of
RDA or
incentives?
something? Or-
Like TIF or what are we talking when we say incentives?
Well, incentives can come a lot of different ways. Certainly can be impact fees. You could basically says, we're not authorizing TIF, or we're not processing a tax increment financing, package. Incentives could very well be just about anything the RDA board is willing to offer to incentivize somebody to come. And I think generically, this statement suggests is a threat to any type of development within Roy City could very well come because we choose not to offer
I think
incentives.
you gotta be careful with your incentives, because
Yeah.
we've already seen some that haven't panned out.
Right.
Agree. But to that comment, does this comment suggest is that we lack them, or we basically tried them and they just didn't work? And if they don't work, we have enough intelligence to simply take them out.
We take that line out.
Yeah, can we strike that one as well?
That's why we're here.
I don't know.
Remove that from the record.
Okay, next one. I got three people that said remove. Competition for revenue within the city. One of the threats might very well be this. We have a limited budget. We have limited revenue. When you start talking about where the competition to the existing revenue, you can basically have to go no further than ask the question is fire department, police department, parks and recreation, administration, public works. You've got competitors against a fixed budget. And those are in fact threats. We don't have an unlimited amount of revenue. So we just have to recognize the fact is that more likely in Roy City, there will always be some element of competition that exists within operating the city that is going to take on that limited amount of revenue. Do you agree with that comment?
Yeah.
It's how the city presents the budget and what you approve as city council in terms of how that budget will be spent determines the priorities and whether or not one organization or other basically gets that revenue. But there is an element of competition. We just don't have an unlimited amount of money. You okay with that comment?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay. No established funding source for economical development. Now, that's an interesting
That's
point.
not necessarily the case. We have RDA money.
Certainly you have RDA. So maybe this either statement needs to be removed or the statement needs to be changed to suggest is because the statement itself may be too limited.
Yeah.
There's certainly other ways by which economic development can
So
take
change
place.
it from no established to limited funding source for economic
That's what I
development.
would say.
Yeah.
Okay. With that comment, then are you okay with us maybe just rephrasing, changing the language on this line to make it much more accurate?
Can you just do no established and put limited?
Yeah,
Yep.
that's what I'm proposing.
that's-
Limited funding
limited
source for
funding
economic
source.
development.
Okay,
So just change the one word.
Yeah.
Next one sounds good too.
you okay with that?
Yeah.
Just want to make sure I get three head nods.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We'll rewrite that. Okay, last one. Speaking of a threat. The question is, and it still is, Ogden Airport Master Plan that shows consolidation and transfer of Roy City properties into Ogden City boundaries. It is in their plan.
Yeah, leave that red.
Yeah,
Yeah, leave that.
add it and leave it red.
Make
Flash,
it flashing and
There was actually a resident here tonight that I talked to last night. She didn't get up and speak, but she lives in that trailer park and she is seriously concerned of what's gonna happen.
Reason why we have to watch this one
I
like.
know I was reading some of the comments from the people running for mayor of Ogden. And they all talked about what they want to do with the Ogden Airport.
I know.
I was reading that in the paper.
Yeah, a lot of conversation on this. We'll have to work through it, but just recognize that it exists as a threat. And we just need to make sure we don't lose our sight of it. Chart? Okay, mission statement. Okay. Roy City exists to enhance the quality of, add the words, life for our community through planning, leadership, citizen involvement, and quality services.
Yeah, that looks
We need
good.
auction cards. We'll just put up the auction card.
Frowny faces, thumbs down.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, that's time to go.
Environmental stewardship, page 11. Vision, actively pursue.
thumbs up, change.
I want an active person.
Oh, yeah, my wife hasn't, anyway.
Okay. Diane, good catch. Okay, how I missed that one. I cannot. even
Diane,
speak.
what we can do with that, you're our spell checker.
Under the goals, okay, establish a citywide water conservation program. Now, that's the goal. The subtext to the goal is talking about this comment, which is allow citizens choice to use their portion of the water to fit their needs. Many water-wise options that still allow turf and are less water than other proposed changes. Different types of turf, different watering systems and strategies, etc. So this one is more of a clarification under this idea about establishing a citywide water conservation program by just help clarifying a little bit in terms of what the city would like them to do as it relates to implementing a water-wise conservation plan.
I would say leave it as is, and this would be something we probably want to address down the road, especially given what's coming out from a water-wise legislation perspective. Because a lot of what we're saying now that we would like to do as a city is going to be overridden by the state.
Certainly the case.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, I would say, if we were to change any verbiage, I would say establish a citywide water conservation program in alignment with broader regional goals or state goals or something like that, as opposed to, because we have no mechanism if the state comes out and dictates to us, you know.
Same thing with secondary water.
Yeah,
I mean,
We're gonna be metered here by the.
I mean, I like where it's headed, but I don't think we have much control over that.
Yeah,
Since the legislators established water districts and the district is an independent of the cities usually.
They
You
citizens
don't
should
have
be
on
allowed
secondary water.
to use their water as they see fit for
Yeah,
their
but
needs though.
A lot
And
of
then
that's
if they
not-
ended up using,
yeah,
yeah.
And that's
so-
why they're metering them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if they go over the meter, they just have to pay the
Right.
extra.
Yeah, but to the defense of the process, and I will indicate to you is that the district, since it's a recognized different government body, can in fact turn off your water on secondary water. And Roy City doesn't have a voice in that choir. So this might very well be, we establish a citywide plan, which talks about awareness.
Right.
Maybe even to some extent talking about how we can control culinary water use. But there are water districts that set a much broader thing, or as Randy suggested, public law that could drive the city to we have to follow a very strict water conservation strategy plan that maybe we didn't create, but it's been created for us. So I think to Randy's point, should this then just simply recognize as a goal and just spell out that we may be under the jurisdiction or direction of a higher authority? And
I
maybe
still
that's how we
I
approach
still
that.
see people watering their lawn between 10 and 6, so
They do.
read any of this and they don't know. They don't care.
Okay, you okay with all that? Okay, Brody, Matt,
I
you got
wanted to
that?
do that.
Okay. Sure. Okay, now we get into the actual pillars. This is the community image and pride. Goal 1 talks about the improve the physical appearance of the city. Now there's a beautification component. In this particular case, if you read the original one, it had a lot of different avenues that was in the draft plan. Lots of different things. And it was consolidated all under this particular objective, objective 1. If you look at these different things, and we're going to walk through these, the intent of this effort in terms of the red is to see if in fact there's a way by which we can move the action and move it into a much better, more appropriate location within the overall plan. And so you'll see a bunch of this as we go through this, but the intent. So here, assuming you feel comfortable with what we're about to do, the intent to this one would be is the original plan had 4 different subsections. It was suggested in the recommendations to scope that down to 2 and then redirect some of those objectives or those action plan elements, direct those into much better places within the existing plan or remove them. And then there's some conversation about the removal. So having said that, if you okay with that premise, and we can agree to that when we get to the end that it still works, the first one would be is this was a subsection, one of the 4. If we got rid of all of these actionable plans and redirect them into another area, which is more suited, then there's no reason for the improved downtown feature to be there because there's nothing in it. And in this case, working with the Arts Council, install murals which depict local history or community in appropriate locations along 1900. If this makes sense, then move that one to goal 3 under objective 3. Keep the plan, the action, we just simply align it more closely to something else that actually fits better for that particular actionable plan. You okay with that thought process? We'll show you how this all fits. Same thing with this one. Working with the Arts Council, develop a contest for artists to paint reoccurring features in the city, such as traffic signal boxes. That one would also fit very nicely in goal 3, objective 3. You okay with that thought process? Okay, maybe you have to kind of see it when we get to it, but that was the intent. Next chart.